It's 1970 and a 24-year-old art student named David Lynch has just spent his entire $7,500 grant from the American Film Institute on a 30-minute nightmare. Imagine a film that starts with a boy planting a seed, normal enough, right? But what grows isn't a flower or a tree, it's a grandmother, a living, breathing grandmother. This is the grandmother, and it's about to show us how a painter with no formal film training would become one of cinema's most distinctive voices. The horror unfolds in layers, each more unsettling than the last. First, we enter a house or a house garden where parents crawl on all fours, their faces twisted in grotesque masks. When they speak, they don't use words, they bark and growl like feral animals. After all, David Lynch was a painter trying to capture moving images. He had no need for words. And the sound, too, is unlike anything you've heard before, because Lynch and his sound designer, Alan Splett, literally created it from scratch. They'd spend hours recording and manipulating everyday objects, the squish of wet newspapers becoming the sound of soil, the scraping of metal transformed into inhuman parental screams. The visuals are equally revolutionary. Lynch, still thinking like a painter, shoots in stark black and white until moments of pure emotion burst onto the screen in explosive colour. Watch closely as the boy's bedroom transforms into a dark void, where the only sound is the soft patter of soil falling through his fingers as he plants the mysterious seed. He literally soils his bed using a bucket to grow a life in his bed. He is a god at creation, causing rain when it is needed, and makes a yellow sun even if his father hates it. Then comes the moment that changed experimental cinema, the grandmother's birth. From the soil erupts a mass of pulsing organic matter, transforming into an elderly woman in a Victorian dress. But this isn't your typical fairy godmother. Lynch films her emergence using a mix of stop-motion animation and live action, creating a sequence that feels both primitive and otherworldly. The grandmother never speaks, but the sound design tells us everything, a gentle hum that cuts through the parents' animal noises like a lullaby through a nightmare. Looking at Lynch's later masterpieces, you can trace everything back to this student film, the red curtains and pulsing sound design that would later define Twin Peaks, the body horror and industrial soundscape that would evolve into Eraserhead, the contrast between domestic normalcy and underlying horror that makes Blue Velvet so disturbing, and even the crackling electricity and flickering lights that would become Lynch's signature. This wasn't just a student experimenting. It was an artist discovering his voice. The film won multiple experimental film awards and caught the attention of none other than Stanley Kubrick, who reportedly called it remarkable. The grandmother isn't just an early experiment, it's proof that sometimes the most powerful artistic voices emerge fully formed. When you watch the boy cradling his newly grown grandmother, their silence punctuated only by those revolutionary sound effects, you're witnessing the birth of a new kind of cinema. This minimal film is not about narrative at all. Instead, it beautifully captures intense emotions that only a child can experience before the experiences of life numb him down. Now, what I want to know is, what's your most unsettling childhood memory? Because Lynch tapped into something universal here. The moment we first realize our parents aren't perfect and the desperate ways we try to fill that void. Share your thoughts below. And if you've seen Lynch's later works, tell us what elements from The Grandmother you recognize. Sometimes understanding where an artist began helps us see their whole career in a new light. With him gone and Jan Svankmajer retired, the most creative chapter in the history of surreal cinema has come to a close.